Hello again, Struckweb. Today I'm bringing you a build for the Soldier class, and I've decided to call this build Sigmar's Charging Herald due to the two Sigmar's god skills we're using, the Charging Shield skill we're using, and the Herald of the Empire or Empire Herald set, which is the Meteoric Iron set as it's known. The build is all about stacking up block chance, dealing more damage based on this block chance, and based on how much enemies we have around us. On top of that, it also is about taunting the enemies, burning them with Sigmar's Wrath and getting more bonuses from Sigmar's Blessing, using the bonus from our set to deal additional damage to enemies who are hitting us, and also uses two different skills from the invasion tree, such as the Duelist chain reaction and the Elixir of Power. One of them gives us extra 30% damage when we use our potion, and the other one gives us additional 200% from 4 stacks of 50 critical damage bonus based on how often we are using skills with cooldowns. This is one of the main reasons why I decided to use Shield Charge for the main damage dealing skill for the build instead of anything else that would not use cooldowns, such as like Pistolier. Another good synergy for the build which comes from the invasion tree would be the Old Ring of Resonance. It allows us to stun the enemies while using skills with cooldowns such as Taunt or Shield Charge. And on top of stunning those enemies, of course we still keep getting the Duelist chain reaction extra crit damage bonus. This can also stun bosses, so it's an amazing choice of ring for one of your slots. So I've decided to show a bit of footage for the build with two different weapons. One weapon of choice would be Magnus's Gift, which is a great choice of weapon when there's multiple enemies around you. The other weapon of choice would be the Grudge Settler, which is a great choice of weapon when you're fighting a single target, such as a boss or an elite that is left out alone. So if this sounds like your kind of type of soldier gameplay, maybe this would be the build video that you are looking for. The gear for this build is based on the Meteoric Iron or Empire Herald set, as you can see. The weapons of choice would be a Magnus's Gift for when you're fighting multiple enemies, and maybe a Grudge Settler for when you're fighting bosses. The shield of choice would be whatever gives you good crit chance and cooldown reduction. This is not a bad choice, this is also not so bad. Meteoric Iron Shield probably would be the best choice. Either Meteoric Iron Shield or Pavis of Anger would be nice. For this video I used Pavis of Anger, and you would see me using both weapons. I did two runs, one with Magnus's Gift and one with the Grudge Settler. So for the rings, I would assume that Ring of Resonance would not be something everyone would have, so instead of Ring of Resonance, before you get it, maybe use something like a good Signet Ring of No or a Signet Ring of Retribution. Those are two great choices. One of them gives you extra cooldown reduction on crits, the other one just gives you some extra health and energy restored on crits. Uh, Purple Signet ring is always a good choice, but if you don't have a good rolled one, just maybe use a no ring and a Signet of Retribution, whatever you have with enough crit chance and cooldown reduction. The most important parts for this build. So once you do get a Signet Ring of Resonance, you would be fine. You need Signet Ring of Resonance mostly because we're using those two skills. Those are also the god skills if you're wondering, if you don't want to go all the way to the end of the video. So you need those two, and you need Signet Ring of Resonance, and those you can only get from the invasion nodes that are here. So you kind of need to get this first, get this, this and this. So maybe start with those two, move on to those two, and then eventually farm the duelists, or maybe even start with the potions, Elixir of Power. Maybe you can even try Elixir of Swiftness, but I use Elixir of Power, then get Duelist Chain Reaction. You can even try using Scout Chain Reaction for speed runs. And then eventually move on to Old Ring of Resonance. Those nodes would help you greatly, so if you're having difficulties, grab those extra buff for you and the buff for the enemy's nodes. Once you get Ring of Resonance, get rid of one of the other rings and hopefully you get something like this with crit chance and cooldown reduction. Otherwise you might have to just retry on another rank and try and get another Ring of Resonance. For the amulet, there are three good choices. One good choice would be Sacred Fire Meadow, which would help you get extra cooldown reduction. Another great choice would be Pure Soul Meadow, which would boost the damage from Sigmar's Rat Superior. And one of my favorite choices for the build would be Enchanted Jade Amulet. Why? Because you would have extra 40% cooldown reduction on the potion, which stacks with this 30% cooldown reduction on the potion. And we would be practically spamming Elixir of Power. Even as it is now, I was able to keep that cooldown resetting quite a few times and just using the Elixir of Power all the time. But yeah, just make sure to try and use this meadow if you find it. So three choices: Pure Soul Meadow, Sacred Fire Meadow, and Enchanted Jade Meadow. Another great choice once it's fixed would be the one that heals you when you're using God skill, because we have two God skills, which would mean 2 extra 20% health restored when using those skills, and they do get reset with some cooldown reduction. As you can see, I'm not using the best things in my slots. Ideally I would be using either the Sacred Fire Meadow or the Signet Ring of Retribution for cooldown reduction, so I can kind of spam those. But even then, I think I was doing kind of okay with the cooldown reduction I've got. It's not much, but it's kind of enough for now, 52.9. Of course, having more would always help. The build is using skills with cooldown such as Taunt and the Superior Shield Charge, so that we can keep our stacks of Duelist Chain Reaction up at 4 and maxed out for that extra 200% bonus crit damage, which we do need. If you don't have enough crit chance from the rings and amulet, try to kind of get as high crit chance as you can on the shield as well, and try to probably put some crit chance in the gear. Ideally, you would have something around 45% crit chance. So the way I've got it set up now with this shield instead of the Meteoric Iron, I can sacrifice this crit chance here, and I can even lose that crit chance here. So I'm gonna lose 5% crit chance, but I can gain 80% crit damage. So once you've got your crit chance above 45%, this is just a suggestion, you may want it higher, you may want it lower. Invest anything else into 40% crit damage blessings. How you get 40% crit damage blessings? You need a mage level 50 character, otherwise you can get only 20. Look what you can get otherwise, you can get something like this. So regardless how you arrange it, you need a blue and a red. And for this, if you go for red or yellow, you're getting damage. If you go for green or blue, you're getting HP. I would suggest going for something like this. It would help your damage if you do not have a level 50 mage. But I strongly suggest getting a level 50 mage. It takes a few hours, 4 maybe even 5 hours if you're slow. And it will allow you to get those 40% crit damage and 2.5% crit chance. Crit chance is done like this, red and green regardless in which order, and it can give you 0.6 per link, and when there's 4 links, which can be achieved only on the mage because there's a link here and link here, and there you can get all the way to 2.5 crit chance. Otherwise with this I can only get 1.2. So something like this is what you would be doing when you need crit chance in the gear. So as you can see, it's much better to level up a mage just to have that extra bonus. So it's 1.3, it's not 1.2. So it's 0.65 per one, and it shows 0.6 because it doesn't show a second digit after the decimal. So ideally, as I said, for monsters use Magnus's Gift or Grid Setter, but if you have a good road or a green Blade of Vengeance, don't worry, just use that, because a green item would improve the damage greatly compared to a red item. And always try to get cooldown reduction on the weapon, on the shield, the accessories and the helmet. This is the main sources of cooldown reduction. The gauntlets can be very good, so if you have gauntlets like those, crit damage, damage and HP, you've struck gold. If you don't have something like this, go for something with flat damage and HP, or maybe flat damage and crit damage, but make sure there is flat damage on the gauntlets, because 3000 or even 6000 would be a huge damage boost compared to like 30, 28 or something crit damage. Even 35 crit damage, it's not worth losing the 3000 or 6000 damage. So yeah, crit damage is not the best, damage is better for the gauntlets. Here you can get cost reduction, not really needed for this build. Here you can also get cost reduction, not needed for this build. And that kind of sums it up for the gear. Now I can quickly show you the passive point allocations and the god skills. The skill points I decided to allocate in such a way where we are using those passive skills: Indestructible Mastered, Bastion Against Corruption Mastered, Divine Judgment Mastered, and Wisdom of the Apothecary Superior. Together with those two, as I showed you earlier in the build, you need to do Invasion. So if you don't have those two, I'll mention in a moment what you can put instead of Duelist Chain Reaction and Elixir of Power. We're using Sigmar's Rat Superior, Banner of the Empire Superior. It has lower cooldown than Banner of the Empire Mastered. It also costs less. I think the cooldown might be actually the same, but it costs less. And it gives almost the same bonus, except this gives extra counterattack damage, which does not work for the damage from the set bonus. Then we have Sigmar's Blessing, just the most basic one, should be fine. But if you have some spare skill points, you can try and put Sigmar's Blessing Mastered. We're using the Heroic Taunt given from the set, amazing skill. Then we get Break Through the Ranks. I'm just putting the most basic one because I needed some extra skill points to place those here. And then we have Shielded Charge Superior. It's great, it's not the best, but it works pretty well with this build. Especially since it gives us extra Bog chance and we kind of need Bog chance for extra damage. Something that the game would not tell you is Bog chance is capped at 90 at the moment. Bog damage is capped at 3000. So with the current skill setup and gear setup, we can actually get more than 90% Bog chance, but it will be capped at 90. So if you decide to downgrade something maybe like this, you can upgrade Sigmar's Blessing to the mastered version. And if you don't have those and you're having difficulties with crit chance, I strongly suggest placing this. When you're farming for gear, I suggest placing this. But if you think you need HP or damage or whatever else, just put one of those. Alternatively, you can place something like maybe this won't be a bad choice. Herald of the Empire, just for extra 10% damage. Or maybe something like this would also be nice. Explosion when you're placing the dagger that damages, repels and slows the enemies. Just experiment what you feel could be placed in those slots, but this was what was used for the build video. So this is it for the skills. Let me quickly show you the god skills. The god skills are pretty simple. Since I found this build doesn't work well when you keep stacking the counterattack damage, I decided to go all the way here, all the way here, all the way here. So I took all those different versions, I kept experimenting with the build, and the way I found out to make it work best is stacking crit damage and crit chance from the gear. Crit damage from the god skills and from the duelist chain reaction and from the blessings, and crit chance from items, item mods. Since Bog chance and Bog damage got nerfed, I decided to remove those 4 nodes and to grab those extra nodes here. So I kind of removed this, this and this, which gave me 5 points. And I spent those 5 points on those skills here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to get that extra damage reduction and to even get Divine Justice mastered. Before this build did not use it. You kind of do need this extra crit damage and you're losing cost reduction, but if you decide to go for something like Pistolier instead of Shield Charge Superior, then you might actually want to not take this node because the cost reduction would actually be needed, that extra 10% cost reduction we're losing here. I just didn't find anything else worth placing that last point in, so I decided to go for this extra 20% crit damage. This kind of is it for the god skills. For the end of this video I will show you maybe a bit more gameplay and some footage of me killing a boss or two of the end of the maps. The way you play this build is kinda simple. You rush in towards the enemies, you put in your banner, you start with Sigmar's Blessing, Sigmar's Wrath to burn the enemies. Try to keep healing yourself with the potion as much as possible so that you can get that extra damage bonus. Keep using shield charge, ideally on a monster that would be a bit further so you can kind of hit more enemies while you're charging towards your target. And don't forget to keep using taunt when it's ready so that you can get more block chance, which in turn would increase your damage. When dealing with bosses you could maybe switch to a Grid Settler weapon for that extra damage to taunted enemies compared to the Magnus's Gift extra damage to nearby enemies affected by its effect. And if you find some way to make the build better, I would really appreciate hearing from you in the comments section. Try to be aware of what the bosses are using, what skills they're casting, and avoid those. So here is the first boss fight. You can see, as I usually do, I start with the banner around the boss, then I just try to kind of do some damage, use my Sigmar's Blessing, Sigmar's Wrath when I can. I'm not always the most effective in regards to using my build, but there should be many more people that would use it much better than I am and kill the bosses faster than I do. Thank you for watching this video, folks. If you've liked it, you can let me know by hitting that button. If you want to be notified in the future for build videos that I'm uploading, you can subscribe to my channel. And if you need the links to my Twitch, Twitter, Facebook and Mixer pages, you can either check the description below the video or watch the final sequence of the video. You can also check my Warhammer CHAOSBANE builds playlist for some more build videos that I've made so far. Thank you again for watching the video and remember to keep it cool. Until next time, goodbye.